Hi everyone, welcome to Inlustris Media. My name is Fushio, and tonight we're going to talk about The Witcher. And this will be my part one of my rolling review on The Witcher series on Netflix. And what I mean by rolling review is that I'm not going to be, I don't have time to binge the entire show in one sitting just because of work and other stuff. So what I decided to do is just watch it in 3 segments of 3 episodes apiece, and then I think it's 8 episodes for the series for the season, so it's going to be 3 videos. And so yeah, I'm going to be doing rolling review and discussion videos as I go forward on this series. Now, a few disclaimers: I have not played the games nor read the books. I have bought the first book and I have bought the game, I believe. It just is so, it's on sale like crazy on Steam, so it's very, very cheap. It's like, I think it's like $7.50 and change for like the entire series, or maybe it was just for 3 Wild Hunt, and then, but I believe you can get the whole series for under $20. So there's no real excuse other than time, and CD Projekt Red is definitely a company that I want to support in light of the recent. Well, there's just a downhill crash of the quality of essentially single-player games, or rather the lack thereof. So they're the only one of the few companies out there that is not falling into this just death spiral of just over monetization, microtransactions, and also essentially gambling now for kids. So, anyways, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I'm sure you've seen. If you enjoyed The Witcher and games like it, plenty of videos on. But I have bought the books. I will be getting the games and playing them in the future. I might make a video comparing them to the show later. But that's my disclaimer. So first off, let's go into what I liked. I love the ultra high production value of the series so far, and and I feel, based on what I've seen so far, that is a double-edged sword, and I'll explain that in a second. But I love the costumes, the sets, the effects all look top-notch. I mean, they're on par, at least to Game of Thrones. There was a few kind of map painting issues I've seen here and there. I was like, okay, that looks pretty fake. But for the most part, it's none of the parts that were not ideal ever really got in the way of me enjoying the show. So yeah, very high production value, very reminiscent of Game of Thrones. We do have, HBO to thank for that, I believe. The action sequences involving Geralt, are very slickly directed from what I've seen so far in episodes 1 through 3, and they're very satisfying to watch. I really enjoy the swordplay between Renfri and his fight I think one of the female characters you meet early on, and also his fight with the Spriga. Oh, and there's gonna be spoilers in this. Just FYI, I haven't really thought on doing a spoiler-free review of the series, but right now I'm just letting you off the bat. There's gonna be spoilers here. So if you intend to enjoy the show on your own time, please come back and watch this video later. Okay, so yeah, I really enjoyed the sword fight sequences against Renfri as well as the Spriga, and I've seen quite a bit of gameplay footage over the years, but I haven't played the game again, so I don't know the full range of what Geralt does and the powers he uses, and so I can't quite say for certain how close the visual effects for Geralt's powers adheres to the game and how they're presented, but I'm pretty impressed with what they're doing so far. It's just that, and the parts where they do show him using his magical abilities, it's done sparingly and tastefully, so it's never overbearing. Make no mistake, magic is very much out in the open in this world. But when Geralt uses it, mostly you see the his enhanced movements. He's faster, quicker, better reflexes, and stronger, and takes a hell of a lot more beating than the average man. They really kind of do the I think it originated from the movie 300, and then later on, for those of you who watched it, Spartacus, Blood and Sand. So the fast and then slow-mo, fast slow-mo stuff. Um, and but this here it's done solidly. They don't abuse that kind of stuff. They don't abuse that technique too often. So it's quite enjoyable when you encounter it. Another thing I've come to like over just the course of the first 3 episodes is Henry Cavill. When they first announced his casting and we started seeing the photos and some of the early trailers, I wasn't buying it too much because because he looks so different than Geralt from the games, and that obviously is not fair to the actor. But it's just that that's kind of the consequence of having the games being delivered at such a high resolution and detail level, especially with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I mean, yeesh, it's like you kind of so. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I warmed up to his portrayal over the course of the 3 episodes, and he's pretty convincing in delivering the action. It looks like he's definitely worked hard at it. Obviously, he maintained his shape from Man of Steel and Superman and all that. So, and I will say this: in the first couple episodes, you'll see that he does this chin thing, like when he's mad, and you've seen it before, I think, in some of the other movies or shows he's done, but it makes him look like a pissed off vice principal. Like, he wants to admonish you and, but he can't, and it's just funny. I'll put up a screenshot so you can see it, but I just find, it just reminds me of this face my vice principal when, in junior high school used to make, where he was really annoyed and angry at a student, but he really can't do much aside from ground him or suspend him. So it's like he's mad, but he can't really do anything about it. And I mean, it's not really his fault. It's just maybe I'm noticing it. But so usually at this point I go into what I disliked or more. I think accurately in this case, because I've only seen 3 episodes of the criticism I have so far. But I think there's a nice bridge in what I'm about to say next, and because it does contain some criticisms, but it's more of a commentary, simply because I'm right in the middle of watching the show. First off, when you start the show, there are 3 parallel narratives going on right now. When you start the show, and this is basically so one narrative is Geralt and his journey, his adventures, and he's being told. There's like this, their themes are like explicitly verbalized, such as destiny and the lesser evil, the greater evil. So you follow Geralt and as he journeys and fights monsters and takes on jobs and makes money. And then there's a second narrative based around Ciri, the little princess of the kingdom of Sintra, and you follow her as she has to escape from being slaughtered and murdered. When Sintra is being invaded by the other kingdom of Nilfgaard. So I'll go into kind of like my issues with what's going on here in a second. And then the third thread, the third narrative you follow is with Yennefer, who starts out as a cripple, and she's a hunchback. She has elven blood, basically. That's what gave her this, and there's this whole thing with the relationship between humans and elves in this world. So Geralt is the most easy to follow at the present because it's very straightforward. It's focused on basically him taking jobs and discovering greater forces at play as he goes and kills monsters, gets hired to do these things by various characters who all have a part to play. One of the people he serves initially is this wizard. I forgot the guy that plays the character, but he's the guy that plays something Petrov in House of Cards. So like we're following him, and his stuff is pretty straightforward. Simply because we're mostly fixated on him and the job he's doing, and we're not really being introduced to too many characters at once without too much. And it's basically following him. And whereas Ciri and Yennefer's narratives are less easy to follow right now, because you are introduced to a lot of people very quickly, a lot of names, and it's hard to keep track of the names and allegiances and factions you see. So, and then the wizard Geralt serves in one of his first missions. I think it might be the first mission. That wizard has in episode 3 appeared in Yennefer's side of the story, and so that provides some context for kind of the greater picture. But so far, it's like that's kind of my notes so far. They're not really criticisms per se. I will say that the characters are all quite interesting and fascinating. I like the acting for the most part. It's pretty strong, and I am sympathetic to the characters, and I want to see more. I want to see what's going on. And my feelings could change down the line, but right now I'm definitely looking to, see to follow these characters as they go through the adventure. So my big criticisms of the show so far is that the show dives right into, the world without too much setup in the first episode or the first couple episodes, and moves very fast for the most part. And this is where I have this feeling that the high production value is a double-edged sword, because I feel like they kind of did what Game of Thrones did, but to nowhere near the same level of egregiousness as Game of Thrones did in season 8. They went for a shorter season with much higher production value on each episode, and the awesome part is that everything looks slick. Everything looks gorgeous for the most part. I mean, the set costumes, you can see the money flying off the screen at you. But that said, the fewer episodes means less time to set it up. And for a world as sprawling and dense, and not in a bad way, but just deep and dense as The Witcher, it's kind of hard to sink my teeth into it. It's just hard to find context for things that, the acting's good, the quality's there, and I want to care. I really do. But the just how little I'm given to work with finding context from the characters so far, it's a little bit alienating. I can't, it's just that I don't have enough context to really be too invested, because I really don't know what I'm supposed to be invested in. So if that's making any sense at all. So, it just dives in without too much setup and moves very fast for the most part. I don't mind the jumping 3 parallel narratives, because that can be great. Because if you do that right, the show is almost never boring. It's like something's always happening, and you get these natural cuts, and it breaks up the narrative a little bit and gives you some, pacing without the need to just, rely on one single narrative thread to keep things going. What I think would have helped here would have been a map of the Witcher universe and world, simply to help us associate the different characters with where they're from, where they are, and where they're going to or trying to get to. And especially since, again, it seems like a truncated season for a universe as vast as this. So any bit of help you can get to get the people, get the audience better context and just more world building, practically speaking, it would be great. I think Game of Thrones opening credits just by themselves did a great job of this. It was, just in hindsight, even more ingenious. I really have no idea how big the world of The Witcher is without having to play the games. I don't know how long the characters have to travel, or how the rules of the world works with regards to magic. And on the whole travel bit, because of the distances, and I don't know what the rules are, what is the average, how long can we expect, a delay between when the character sets off to go somewhere and when they get there. All this stuff, it just kind of makes it hard to relate to the drama. How high are their stakes, how much time they have, how little time they have. So other more specific criticisms for, I think this was like episode 1 or 2 maybe, as it relates to Ciri's story. So now I'm going to talk about Ciri's side a little bit. There's no context or explanation for why Nilfgaard attacked Sintra. There's just nothing there. We get some kind of cues from Ciri's grandmother's performance, and I think the acting here is pretty solid. But I was confused as to why Ciri's grandmother, as a queen, was so relaxed 1 second, and she was talking about Nilfgaard as if they were no big deal, and then the next one, when that guard whispers in her ear, or her general lieutenant, and she becomes like absolutely horrified at what's happening, and that Nilfgaard is marching on them. So it's like I'm not sure. Oops. So I'm not sure how that works, and I would have thought, someone like they portrayed her to be a bit of a badass and a woman of action. So I would have thought she'd be better prepared to defend against a foe like Nilfgaard. If the mere mention of them marching on her is bringing this much horror and causing the color to drain from her face. The show, from this context, is definitely designed to be binged. There's a lot of dropping us into the middle of the action without too much world building. Again, which I generally don't mind, but here it's just 3 episodes in, and I have virtually no concept of the overall world in terms of size, geography, political affiliations, and how the various factions connect together or are at war with each other. And I do enjoy the bit of mystery, but it's getting close to being a bit frustrating. And again, I don't know how people travel in terms of distance, time, and logistics. And you might think that's nitpicking, but Game of Thrones, especially if you read the books, there's that the whole practicality of getting from place to place and the distances involved and communication definitely amps up the drama and is used to is used to flesh out the conflicts and the tension in the story. So I don't see. So I hope they do. I hope they do more of that in this show down the line. So on that note, overall the world building I feel has been a bit clumsy and expository. And an example of this is when Geralt is traveling with the bard, with the guy, the annoying dude with the not banjo, what is it, the ukulele or whatever the instrument is, and they get conked over the head by this. There's a name for this creature in mythology. I can't recall that, but they get conked over the head by a creature, by kind of a fun character, I think, and they get captured out of nowhere, basically, and then they get immediately captured by an elven king, allegedly, and again, it just comes out of nowhere. You get some expository dialogue about the relationship between the humans and the elves, and how the elves had helped the humans and the humans betrayed them. So it's like that to me is fascinating, because you do see, with Yennefer's side of the story, you do get a more kind of a gradual build on the relationship between elves and humans. And to credit where credit's due, on her side of her narrative thread is pretty good. It's done pretty well. We get kind of piecemeal feeding of like, oh, she's disfigured because she's half elvish, and that on top of the fact that she has elven blood and also disfigured. She's treated horribly. There's an episode named Four Marks where she was sold by her own father so that works for me. I love that. I love her character so far, by the way. And but right now, I'm not. The world building in a lot of ways is just okay. This feels like you can definitely see the sacrifice that had to be made, for the shorter season. And also in terms of world building, I have no idea how the school of sorcery works, and how are the men trained and assigned differently from the women. It looks like usually it looks like both male and female sorcerers get placed into these these large great houses, if you will. I'm not sure how different they are. Do they have basically the same powers and just a gender difference or something? And if so, the physical attractiveness of Yennefer, shouldn't have mattered, but it did. I personally would have been fine with any direction they chose. I know there was a hubbub from Entertainment Weekly or whoever, they didn't even watch the show, and they were like, oh, this is ableism, because Yennefer has to go from being disfigured to this beautiful, gorgeous, I think they called him Booby Witch. It's funny. And so I wouldn't mind it either way. The character, the performance by the actress, I don't have the name, but it's good enough as disfigured or gorgeous, attractive witch. It would have worked for me either way, but you know what? If the book went with this direction, guess what? It makes more sense to go where the book's going. So I think that was a bit of a tangent. And one thing that I still don't understand is Yennefer was an untrained, novice when we first meet her, and when she's being beaten up and victimized by these two farmhands, she teleports to Istrid, kind of her love interest for a bit there, into this sorcerer school, like automatically for the first time. I mean, of all the places to end up, how did she end up there, right? Like I would have thought she would go anywhere. And more than likely, maybe a place she's seen before, somewhere quiet, maybe out in the middle of the woods or a field where no one's close. But okay, I like a bit of a more explanation that part. So overall, I get where they're going with the kind of world building they're doing. They want the audience to glean and piece together the universe as we follow Geralt and the other characters. But at some point, the lack of context is getting a bit frustrating. And my concern is that, and I think, but I'm not too worried about that part per se, because it's a show that's designed to be binged, and so I have no doubt that a lot of the stuff will be explained as I go through the season. My concern is that the showrunners are using the binge structure format of the show as a crutch for good storytelling or better storytelling. And this is, I guess you can call it nitpicking, but I, as someone who's been trained in this and who's pursuing this myself in my own creative work, I feel like there's a slippery slope to be on. If you start cutting corners, you're just going to keep cutting corners until you don't have a shape, until the thing just looks like crap. So I hope they don't do that, and I hope the interest and the kind of and I think the show's doing pretty well of the audience is going to basically have Netflix go like, oh, okay, well, they love it, and so we're going to drop more money on it, and this time enough so that you guys can deliver a full season of like longer episodes or just more episodes, so we can do the storytelling in a more kind of like less disjointed and more kind of graceful way, if you will. So, but don't take this criticism as my dislike for the overall show. I actually am enjoying the show a lot right now, and I plan on finishing it, and I'll be putting up more videos. And that's what I have for The Witcher so far on Netflix. So thank you very much for joining me tonight, and if you like the content and have any feedback or anything like that, please hit a like, subscribe, comment down below. But yeah, we're one day removed from the new year, and so hope to join you guys more for 2020. Thanks. Bye.